You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. You're listening to us on CBS Radio WJFK 1580 AM, or you're visiting us at WMCLive.com for this and any of our previous episodes. Look for WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter, and you can now stream, download, and subscribe to our show's podcast worldwide, anytime, at iTunes. My guests this week offer us a new slant on fighting discrimination against HIV-positive people, a new approach to an old problem, women trying to do it all, new groundbreaking research on racism in media, and new insights, together with the wit we're accustomed to. That's from the always very funny Kathy Najimy. But first we need to look inside the headlines. Inside the Headlines this week refers to a cover story of the New York Times a few days ago that featured two female senators, Claire McCaskill of Missouri and Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, one of my two senators, and their competing bills over the best way to handle sexual assault and sexual harassment in the military. The McCaskill bill, to oversimplify somewhat, believes that complaints and grievances should be kept within the chain of command. It has the backing of the Secretary of Defense and of most military chiefs. The Gillibrand bill, which has the backing of most victims, many women in the military, including Service Women's Action Network, and many feminists, myself, full disclosure, included. The Gillibrand bill, which has that backing, takes it out of the chain of command and says that complaints and grievances go to a military prosecutor. It doesn't take it out of the military entirely, which some people believe should be the case, that it should become a civilian complaint. It doesn't do that, but it does leave the commanders out of it. It takes it out of the chain of command. And the reason is that there have been many cases in the past where commanders have squashed such complaints. In fact, there have been several cases where commanders pardoned convicted perpetrators. So the trust level is pretty low. But however you come down on this issue with McCaskill or Gillibrand, what interested me was something else, was the fact that we have matured as women and a women's movement to this stage where two women of real power could fiercely and civilizedly disagree. They're each lobbying like hell for their own position, getting senators on board to back them. They each have a strong and sincere commitment to what she believes is best for women. They each are not afraid anymore to disagree for fear that somebody will label it a catfight. It's a maturation moment, and one that I think we should stop and observe. It's being done in a civilized, collegial fashion that their male colleagues in the Senate would do well to emulate, and certainly in the House. And I salute both Senator McCaskill and Senator Gillibrand, the former with whom I disagree on this issue, the latter with whom I agree. But I salute them for the way in which they are conducting this disagreement. And I thought to myself, even Harry Reid reportedly is scared to tangle with them. They're doing it really well, and we've reached that point in history where we can. This is good, I thought. This is good. This is real good. Our first guest is Laurel Sprague. She is the research director for the Zero Project, and she teaches at the Department of Political Science at Eastern Michigan University. She's worked with UNAIDS, with USAID, her work focusing on the resiliency and capability of HIV-positive people, particularly women, especially when faced with HIV discrimination, criminalization, and human rights abuses. Welcome, Laurel, to Women's Media Center Live.
Robin, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here to talk to you and to your listeners.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here because I think there needs to be a lot of basic 101 educating about HIV and criminalization and the Zero Project. That's S like Sarah, ERO, the Zero Project. Explain to our listeners just what the problem is with criminalization and what the Zero Project is.
Sure. The Zero Project, I'll start there. The Zero Project is an organization that has been created entirely by people living with HIV, for people living with HIV, to address stigma and discrimination based on HIV status. So when we talk about HIV criminalization, we're referring to laws that single out people living with HIV for criminal penalties for not disclosing our HIV status to sexual partners, or for exposure or transmission of HIV to other people. And this might seem like a good idea, or it might seem like a good idea that we would have laws that stop HIV transmission. But what we've learned are two things. One is the laws don't do anything. We have no evidence whatsoever that these laws reduce HIV transmission or put anyone at less risk of transmission. What we do know is that most of the laws on the books are not based on science whatsoever. They don't reflect the way that HIV is actually transmitted. And the result is that we have people in jail, in prison, sometimes for 20 years or more, for things such as spitting or biting that don't transmit HIV whatsoever. And we have a current case right now of this woman in Ontario. So we focus a lot on the U.S. and Canada, as we are the leaders in the world in putting people in prison for HIV-related accused or alleged crimes. So there's a woman in Ontario right now who is facing aggravated sexual assault charges, so aggravated rape charges. She's HIV positive, and she performed oral sex on a male partner. He didn't transmit HIV. We don't have any known cases in which HIV has been transmitted by saliva, but is facing the same charges as if she had raped someone, with great force of aggravated sexual assault.
Okay, that sounds ridiculous, that charge. But let me play devil's advocate here, because this comes up when I talk about it to other people. People say, isn't it a criminal offense to not tell the truth to an ostensible partner when you have any kind of STD, gonorrhea, syphilis, etc., and to transmit that without without warning a partner? So why, they say, should this be any different? In fact, isn't this even, they say, more serious? What do we say to them?
Well, I think we can say that is a fair enough point, except that that's not actually what's happening. The first thing that I would say is that in most states, HIV is the only sexually transmitted infection that is treated in this way by the criminal law.
Wow.
Right. And so women are exposed to HPV, regularly, and there's no way to prosecute someone for giving us HPV, even if we get cancer from that later. Yeah. In fact, I have young male students who tell me it's very difficult for them to even get tested for HPV so that they can know if they need to protect their female partners. They have to specifically know to ask for it and press for that kind of test when they go in for an annual exam. So we treat syphilis differently. We treat gonorrhea differently. We treat herpes differently. Those are not things that in most states you can go to the police and say that someone has exposed you without telling you, and therefore you should be able to bring charges. It only happens in the case of HIV, which is why we think it's really based in stigma and discrimination rather than a real desire to protect people.
I see. Well, you raise women, which of course women get a double whammy from criminalization. Talk to us about that, and from the perspective of a positive woman yourself. Positive in more ways than one, but also positive, HIV positive.
Well, thank you for that. I do want to say one more quick thing in response to your last question that I think is important, and that is that people living with HIV around the world consistently expressed the idea that we believe it is our moral and ethical obligation to protect our partners from HIV, and to disclose our HIV status whenever it's safe. From the time of the Denver Principles that were articulated in 1983 by people living with HIV, through the present, through a recent study we did with the Seral Project, overwhelming percentages of people with HIV do believe there's a moral obligation, whenever it's safe, to disclose your HIV status.
That's
I just want to put that out there.
That's really important. And wow, does that not get publicity?
Right. Because where the real issue comes in is whether or not this should be something for which people face criminal charges. Rather than it being a situation in which intimate partners are making decisions and negotiating how they're going to be sexual with one another.
I see.
So what I would like to talk about is just the incredible vulnerability that women living with HIV face because of HIV criminal laws. In many cases, the laws we're told that they're put into place in order to protect women, but what happens in their implementation is that once a woman is infected with HIV, she is just as vulnerable to the use of the law as a man is. And what we find is that women express a deep sense of legal vulnerability because of the existence of these laws. And so the Seral Project did a study across the U.S. last year. And among the respondents were 300 positive women, so 300 women living with HIV.
Right.
And what they told us in this study is that they're not clear. 69% of women who are positive aren't clear how to protect themselves from prosecution once they're positive. And that's not because they don't know the law. It's because these laws are written in such vague ways that it's very difficult. It's very difficult for me to know how to behave in ways that wouldn't leave me in some way vulnerable to prosecution in my state of Michigan. In addition to that, a quarter of women they fear that they'll be falsely accused of not disclosing status when in fact they have. And I know a number of women, myself included, who work very hard to try to always make sure there's documentation that we've disclosed, because when things go bad in a relationship, and they do, people do terrible things. And so you're constantly vulnerable to those kinds of accusations. And that 80% of women and all people in this study believe that a person living with HIV cannot get a fair trial if they are falsely accused, and that's because of the stigma and discrimination bias that exists within the court system. And so if someone chooses to make a claim about us, it's going to be very difficult for us to have any sense that we could protect ourselves in court.
And women, of course, are always also more vulnerable in terms of they could have their kids taken away from them. They can, there's an additional stigma, even just with alcohol, that, if a guy is drunk, he's a jolly drunk. If a woman is drunk, she's a slut and a whore and so I'm sure that the same double standards apply, no matter how she has contracted the disease or the virus, rather. There is an assumption that somehow it must be her fault, and it must inhibit, the criminalization must also inhibit women from getting the social services then that they need, because are they afraid to report it?
Right. Well, that's exactly the case. And in many situations, a woman in a relationship is the first to know her status. We're more likely to get tested in the U.S. and around the world, largely because of gynecological services. We get pregnant and we have regular exams, and so we may be blamed as the person who brings HIV into a relationship when it's a consensual sexual relationship, in which no matter who blame shouldn't be part of the equation.
Of course not.
And if it is, it shouldn't be labeled or placed on the person who has the sense of self-care
and brings home the knowledge, gets to be the messenger.
Exactly.
Whoopee.
And I'd also invite people to go to the Canadian HIV Legal Network website. There's a free film there called Positive Injustice, and it features 4 positive women from Canada dealing with issues of HIV criminalization, and it's eye-opening.
Give the 2 websites.
The Canadian website is AIDS Law, AIDSLAW.ca. Great.
And the other one is?
The Seral Project is Seral Project, SEROPROJECT.com.
gmail.com. Terrific. This is wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Laurel. You're terrific. And it's a very interesting and informative set of facts that you've given us today, something to mull on. And yet another front to be active on. Oh, God, women's work is never done. Thank you again.
Well, we appreciate our sisters very much. Thank you.
Right back at you. Thank you so much for being with us on Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you, Robin.
We need to take a short break here. This is Women's Media Center Live, and I am Robin Morgan. When we come back, we'll talk about a new book that's focused on an old problem. Women being made to feel that we need to do it all or have it all. I mean, who even wants it all?
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
Welcome back. Our next guest is Debora Spar. She's been on the program before. She's the president of Barnard College, and her previous books have included The Baby Business, How Money, Science, and Politics Drive the Commerce of Conception. She's given us a new book which asks, why do we have to be Wonder Women? Debora, welcome back to Women's Media Center Live.
Oh, it's so nice to be here. Thank you.
Well, the last time you were here in your capacity, very distinguishedly, as the president of Barnard College, and we talked a lot about younger generation women and women on campus and Barnard's work specifically, which is fantastic. But this time, I want to focus on your new book called Wonder Women, Sex, Power, and the Quest for Perfection. Ha-ha. I think the first cover of Ms. Magazine was a woman with 8 arms like a Hindu goddess, and one held an iron and one held a briefcase and one held a baby and, so forth.
Great cover.
Yeah, it really is. And now, all these years later, you're saying, in effect, that although so much has changed, we're still an 8-armed goddess trying to do too many things. How did we stay in this position or get stuck here, and what can we do about it?
Well, it's sort of a sad thing to recognize that although women have come so far in so many ways over the past 40 or 50 years, in terms of this, 8-armed goddess, I think we may have actually even gone backwards. Because I think what happened, without anyone meaning to, and largely as a result of good intentions all around, is women, starting with girls growing up, began hearing about all these wonderful opportunities that were now available to them. Women could go to the Ivy League, women could be Supreme Court justices, women could be astrophysicists. And I think generations growing up absorbed those messages, but somehow heard them not quite right, and instead of hearing that you can, generations of girls began to hear you should, that because you can be an astrophysicist, you should. And so we added to these expectations, which in many ways is a great thing, but crucially, we somehow never managed to get rid of the older expectations. So I'm seeing young women today, totally convinced that they can and will be astrophysicists, but also feeling like they have to be perfect mothers to, 3 or 4 children and have perfect relationships and keep their homes immaculate. And in a sense, I think we've actually increased the expectations around homemaking, which is, totally retro, but somehow that snuck in there. And so I think, sadly, the goddess you described now probably has 10 or 15 arms attached to her exhausted body.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, your background is in political science. So I want to ask you this. It's interesting how what is, in a sense, an old conservative right-wing message that whatever you do at base, you still have to be the perfect wife and the perfect mom. How did that message get itself encased in feminism? Because clearly the women's movement never sent it, or we wouldn't have had that 8-armed goddess on the cover.
No, and I mean just to underline the point for a moment, pick up any magazine on the rack. Particularly in October, where it seems to be oddly amped up. And you look at the standards of homemaking that are out there. Martha Stewart has on the cover this month this pumpkin that must have taken somebody 600 hours to carve. But it's presented as something you sort of whip up in your spare time. And any of the magazines are, constantly, even if subtly, portraying these messages of, women as sex kittens. We're supposed to be sexy from the time we're 17 until the time we're 77. And you make, a completely right point that this was not at all what feminism was about. And if you go back and read the classic texts, they're very, very clear that women need to be liberated from housework.
Right.
So I don't know exactly how this retrograde message snuck back in. I don't think it was the result of a conspiracy. I don't think people are sitting in corners, figuring out how to get women to carve more pumpkins.
Maybe it just was the overarching message of, you should excuse the word, the patriarchy that was not going to give up without a fight. I mean, that goddess with 8 arms on the Ms. cover had a tear coming out of her eye. She was not a happy.
She was not a happy goddess. No.
Yeah. What do you say to the people who say, well, we're getting confused. Sheryl Sandberg is telling us lean in, and Debora Spar is basically telling us lean back.
Well, First of all, I think, this topic is so big and so complicated. There certainly could be more than 2 or 3 voices on it. So
yes.
I think it's actually fabulous that we're getting a range of different voices in the conversation, and I think we need more because, as many critics of my book and Cheryl's have correctly pointed out, we're still not hearing from poor women, black women, single women, gay women. So we got a lot more talking to do. But I'm very explicitly not saying lean out or give up. I'm just saying be realistic. That we're not Wonder Women. Maybe there are a couple out there, but most of us are not superhuman. And I think women need to realize that the standard of having it all is just a really bad standard because nobody has it all. And so it's not that we have to give up or toss our dreams away. It's just realizing that life is built on trade-offs.
Yeah.
And to go back to the original goals, or at least some of the original goals of feminism, if you want to have a high-powered job, you're not going to be able to sweep your floors every day.
Right.
So either you're going to have to get some help from a partner or outsource or let them get dirty. But something's got to go. Right.
Interestingly, that when you say that this is coming, this new, I wouldn't call 2 books a rash, but of books is coming from educated and quote unquote privileged, because in a patriarchy I use the word advisedly, women. It's almost as if, this is an ironic twist, it's almost as if there's been a turnabout, because although it is thought that we've never really heard from poor women, from women at the bottom of the economic ladder, etc., interestingly enough, for years, the women who took the word feminism more to their usage and their lives were African American women. And in one sense, they got the message and said, well, the hell with that. I'm not going to clean that, or I'm not going to do that because I'm too tired from the factory line, In one sense, they got that, whether they were able to get their message out, but they got the message much earlier. It's almost as if a group of women who were, I wouldn't say held back by privilege, but for whom privilege was another mask of liberation, if this is making any sense, are catching up now. And so I see your book as an important contribution. In a very different way, I see Sheryl, certainly for women in the corporate world. So there's also nothing to say that every single new piece of thinking that comes out of women has to be pertainable to every woman who ever lived,
No, I think that's right. And I think it's unfortunate that somehow we've, again, fallen into the trap of thinking that there's a single solution for women, or, a single book that has to speak to all women. We are, whatever it is, 52% of the population.
Right.
When a man writes a book, nobody comes out and says, is that the truth for all men?
That's right. Exactly. Yes. Well, this is, what kind of reception have you been getting when you go into bookstores and talk to real women?
I have to say, knock wood, I've been bowled over. Maybe the people who didn't like it aren't showing up, but people really seem to like the book.
Of course
to use a
they
silly
do.
Verb. And what I've found, which has been just delightful and humbling is something about the book is compelling other women to tell me their stories.
Yes.
I think it sort of legitimized people saying, "Oh my God, let me tell you about the chaos in my life," or "Let me tell you about the hard decisions I've made in my life." And I've seen lots and lots of women coming to my events and sort of buying 3 books, and they're buying one for themselves, one for their daughters, and one for their granddaughters.
Yes.
And I like that.
All of this is very familiar, and it's just miraculous. Well, congratulations, Debora.
Thank you so much.
It's an important contribution, and I hope you come back and we'll talk about whatever, the next book.
Thank you so much. I'll get working on that.
And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner. This item is from Reuters news service, and in case you think that in all you're trying to slow down and be sane and maybe meditate or garden or read, just veg out for a while, watch bad movies, in case you think that that's the proper response to a too frenetic life, the Norwegians really know what's the proper response to slowing down. Norway's public broadcaster is set to broadcast 12 hours of knitting, complete with sheep shearing and needle tips. We'll dive deep into the world of knitting, then we'll turn down the pace after midnight, said Rune Mukkelbust, a producer for NRK, which is the public broadcaster. We'll watch the arm of a sweater get longer and longer. It will be fascinating. NRK, which is like their NPR, has a history of quirky programming, to say the least. In 2011, it broadcast 134 hours nonstop of a cruise ship going up the Norwegian coast to the Arctic. And last February, it broadcast a 12-hour show on firewood, featuring a debate on whether the bark should face up or down. Honest. NRK plans to make the knitting show available at www.nrk.no/knitting with English commentary. So that'll teach you. Time for another short pause. This is Women's Media Center Live, and I'm Robin Morgan. You know how some people claim that we're in a post-racial society, and as proof they cite the popularity of such films as The Butler and 12 Years a Slave and Django Unchained, and they say we're in a post-sexist society too. Well, don't go away, because when we come back, we're going to be discussing just who's not who in Hollywood and media.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
And we're back again. A new study and analysis examines race and ethnicity on screen and behind the camera across 500 popular films. And the results are stunning. It's out of the Media Diversity and Social Change Initiative of the University of Southern California, and the principal investigator is Professor Stacy Smith, who is the USC Annenberg Professor in Media, and she's with us today. Stacy, welcome to Women's Media Center Live.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Robin.
Well, Professor Smith, you and your team have done another amazing thing with this study. It just took my breath away, particularly in a period when everybody is running around saying, well, that problem is solved. You looked at the total percentage of black speaking characters per film in 2012, And almost 40% of all those movies portray black characters as less than 5% of the speaking cast. Mm-hmm. And it gets even worse when it's women.
Well, we see that around a third of all the female speaking characters, 33.9% of all the characters that could be evaluated for race or ethnicity were Hispanic. About 35% of the speaking characters that were black were female. Of Asians, it's about 35%. Interestingly, though, if you look to Caucasian speaking characters, it's less than a third. It's only 29%, which really, I think, is important to think about these trends with women, because you have to ask who's telling the stories. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating from this investigation, paired with another study that we released last May, typically we see white men telling stories behind the camera. And who do we see most underrepresented in terms of females by race? It's white females of those four categories. So that's really fascinating, because we see that many of the storytellers in Hollywood aren't diversifying or populating popular films with white females.
Interesting. And of course the portrayal of women when they're in the films, you say Hispanic females, 41%. I'm rounding out. Are more likely to be depicted in sexy attire and partially naked, more so than black females or white females.
Indeed.
And Asian females are less likely to be sexualized.
Exactly.
I mean, these are actually, you make honest women of us, because we feel not all is right, and these are the figures to prove it. And it all has to do with who's behind the camera, doesn't it?
I would assume that plays a large role. And my question with these data are twofold. Why do we see ethnic and racial differences? These are antiquated stereotypes that I think storytellers are probably relying on to when they cast different females in different roles. So one, why are we seeing these racial and ethnic differences? And why are we seeing differences between men and women, right? We should level the playing field. We really shouldn't be seeing these distinct differences in the objectification of characters by gender or by race, for that matter. But that's in fact what we see.
Yeah. I mean, and also, if you can't, the old saying, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So Indeed. It's as a side effect. How the black family is always criticized because black males are not parental, and so, but black males are least likely to be shown as parents or caregivers, 26%, or as romantic partners. I mean, so what does that tell young black kids?
Indeed, and I think that if we really step back and we take a socialization perspective, which is what we take here at Annenberg, thinking about these data, what are males and females, boys and girls in this country socialized to when it comes to gender and race? And I think that what we see in this investigation is particularly problematic of what the youngest viewers are being exposed to. And I just like to highlight one of the problems, I think, is really what we see going on behind the camera. We evaluated over 560 of the directors, whether they were black or not, across the top grossing films from 2007 to 2012. There were only 33 directors that were black total. So if we really want the texture and multidimensionality of this country to be reflected on screen, we have to have storytellers behind the camera that reflect the diversity of this country. And we simply don't see this in the top grossing fare.
Yeah. This is your latest study that's just out now, but you do this all the time. You're amazing. I mean, you did a study a while ago on gender and job-related aspirations. Talk a little bit about that one. That was amazing, too.
Yeah, Robin, that was a real highlight, I think, for my team, which can, involve anywhere around, 70 to 100 people per year at the Annenberg School working on the Media Diversity and Social Change Initiative. What we did a few years ago with a grant from the C. Jane program, we were interested not only in the percentage of speaking characters on screen that were male and female, but we were also interested in those that were portrayed with a job or not. And we took it one step further. We weren't just interested in whether they had a job or not, but what type of job in what sector, and did those characters that work in different sectors, what percentage were in clout-based positions? So the upper echelons of the most prestigious sectors in terms of employment in this country. And we evaluated well over 5,800 characters, speaking characters, in 129 feature films. Across all of those characters, there were only 2 women, 2 single speaking characters, independent speaking characters that were shown working across 129 family films in the executive suite as CEO, COO, CFO, etc. Only 2. Okay, now let's turn to politics, another area that's contested in terms of women's participation. Across all of the characters, there were only 3 women, 3 females that were coded as high-level politicians. Now, what's interesting, one of those portrayed a German chancellor, so that's not even a domestic portrayal. It was portraying an international figure.
Right.
The other 2 women shown on screen were U.S. representatives that did not speak but were only referred to by name. And thus they made it into our sample of evaluation. That means across 5,800 characters, there's not a Hillary Clinton, a Condoleezza Rice, a Nancy Pelosi. Kids would have to watch hours upon hours of G, PG, and PG-13 rated films to see a strong female U.S. politician. They simply don't exist. And there were over 45 different prestigious U.S. political positions involving men across the 129 films. So there's a real representational crisis going on in terms of what young males and females are seeing on screen in terms of power and clout.
Yeah, I'll say. I mean, it would almost be funny because it's so absurd, a misrepresentation.
Right, absolutely. You're exactly right.
Except that it's not funny at all. Do you see me laughing,
No, exactly. I mean, the Senate numbers are bad, right? Or if we look at Congress broadly, these are abysmal. And these are the creative constructions of people who have no boundary when it comes to their imagination, right? But we simply do not see it reflected on screen.
Yeah. So we need to get more women directors. We need to get more women producers. We need to get more men of color as well.
Indeed.
Because, the figures have bumped up on documentary films, but on features, which is what you're examining here, and on television, they haven't, because that requires more moolah. And where money is concerned, they don't trust us.
Exactly. And that's what some of the findings from our Sundance investigation in January revealed. And I think that the documentary realm is really where we need to look, because women are thriving in the documentary space. We know that funding is democratized. Women have access to storytelling. They have access to resources. And so when people often say there's just not enough qualified women in the narrative space, all we have to do is look at the documentary space and say, actually, they're flourishing. And it's a really important barometer to let us know what the narrative numbers probably should look like.
Oh, Stacy, this is very frustrating because we have to go. But thank you for the great work that you're doing. Continue to do it, and please come back and see us again on Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you so much, Robin. And of course, I will come back anytime you ask.
We have to take another brief pause here at Women's Media Center Live, where I am still Robin Morgan. When we return, we'll talk with actor, activist, funny woman, and all-round utterly lovable Kathy Najimy. Don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
Welcome back. We first fell in love with her when she played Sister Mary Patrick in the Sister Act movies, and we stayed in love with her through fine performances as an actor in Soap Dish and The Fisher King, straight on up through playing Laura Linney's therapist recently in The Big C, and now she's a recurring guest star on Veep. She's an activist. She's a hilarious, funny woman. She's the utterly lovable Kathy Najimy. Oh, dearest Kathy, welcome back to Women's Media Center Live.
Oh my gosh, it's been too long. I missed you and our talks, Robin.
They're wonderful because they ramble. I mean, it's like we talk when we really talk.
It is. It's like lunch We had cocktails and nuts the other night, so that's what I'm going to call it, cocktails and nuts with Robin.
I wish I had some both now, right this very minute. Speaking of which, you lost a lot of weight lately, and
I did.
and I of course loved you before you did, and now it's a strain on my sisterhood because you look so svelte. But I'll manage to love you anyway. And we started talking about women and women's bodies.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's always shocking to me that, someone like you who I've looked up to for my whole life, and it was, I think, really, Robin Morgan, you're so beautiful and accomplished and fierce and, have done so many great things in the world, and men and women alike in love with you.
Oh, well, this is true. I'm absolutely amazing. But I am also 5 feet tall. I used to be once was a stately Amazonian 5'2". And of course you lose height, with age, which Gloria always says, well, I'm losing inches too. And I snarl, yes, but you started out at 5'10".
Right.
So when you're losing height and then also the Parkinson's medication affects impulse control. So for a while there, I thought, and I ate. So I grew sideways. So now it's coming off because of the gym and all sorts of good, healthy things. But it becomes, it's in this case, it's also the weight of carrying weight around when you're short.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly things. And
but you're right. But you're right in talking about the overwhelming psychological and women as objects to be perceived is what it comes down to.
And what we perceive ourselves our worth as. And I don't know a woman or girl who doesn't connect her value with her body. Now, we know that's not right. However, we still are in the game. It's what we were told. It's what we were taught. And so, when people say, like, well, how can you go around the country and speak on body image and eating disorders if you're still struggling with it? And I say, well, because I see the light.
That's why.
See what's wrong with it. And I didn't choose to be brought up in this world like this, but I can see it, especially with my daughter and her friends. And I'll never forget, I had just arrived in Los Angeles. I had been doing the Kathy Mo show for a while in New York, and there was some interest in me in New York.
I have to interject. If the listeners have not seen the DVDs, they're on DVD, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if you have not seen the DVDs of the Kathy and Mo show, run, do not walk, or get them on Amazon or whatever. they are to die for. Okay, I'm finished.
Thank you. No, thanks. Yeah, Kathy Mo is a 2-woman feminist comedy play and HBO specials that Mo Gaffney and I did for 47,000 years. But
hilarious, genius, brilliant.
So anyway, I landed in New York, Los Angeles. I had spent 6 years doing Kathy Mo in New York, and they're like, people are interested in you from movies and TV, and I was so excited. And I've always been a huge fan of Bette Midler. So Bonnie Bruckheimer is the woman who ran her company for years and years. They were partners in all of Bette's projects, and Bonnie Bruckheimer was like the golden ring for me. She was like the silver chalice. I had read about her. She'd produced everything Bette done, and I thought she was the smartest, which she is, one of the smartest producers in Hollywood. And I got a meeting with her. She wanted to see me, and I pulled up in Disney in my rented car, and I got out, and I go in to meet Bonnie, and who's so accomplished. I can't even, IMDb her, you'll know. And I walk in, and she went, ugh. And I said, what? She goes, I feel horrible. And I said, why? She said, I just went to lunch, and I literally ate the bread in the basket. And I thought, oh, dear goddess.
Yeah.
It affects everybody. I would think the last thing on Bonnie's mind would be her thighs.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It's everybody, no matter the intelligence, the position, accomplishment. It's just crazy.
And it's cross-cultural, too, because even when it's not, here's a double whammy for you. In Samoa, American Samoa and non-American Samoa, and many of the Pacific Islands, there is a beauty standard for women which is to be considerably overweight, what we would consider obese, because it means that you have enough food, that you're wealthy, that you have status then, in your tribe, among your people. So on the one hand, that's again valuing women in terms of their physical appearance. On the other hand, the double whammy comes in because now, affected by the global north, the two fastest growing phenomena in Samoa are Mormonism, that'll depress you for a while, and eating disorders, because now with the internet and with television, the image of the stick-thin female has come home to them, and so
oh my gosh.
So now there's anorexia. So yeah, it has enormous power.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And I mean, I I struggle every day, but I did lose some weight because I moved to New York, first of all, and got happy. Plus I started walking in New York, and just everything was bugging me. Like you say, look, if you want to lose weight for health, believe me, I did. My knees are better.
Yeah.
But also I felt more appropriate, and that is something for me to look at. And the truth is that women are not only not living their authentic lives, but they are also literally killing themselves trying to get to this one unattainable size, because nobody can get it. I hang out with those women. I hang out with those women on TV that everybody covets and thinks are so perfectly, easily, naturally slim, and they are not.
Yeah.
They are chain smoking, workout addicted, and again, nobody's fault, no fingers being pointed.
Right.
I'm right in there in the barrel. It's just, I just feel like as much as we can, we should just say it and look at it. I don't know if it's going to change.
Well, the more that it's spoken about, that's always the first step, is to name it. Name it first, then change it. And also, when well-known people speak out about it, like you, that makes a big difference as well.
Yeah. I, believe me, having a 17-year-old daughter. Wow, I can't believe she's going to turn 17 in a month. Wow.
Well, but she's gorgeous, your daughter.
She is. And what I was going to say about your son is, do you look across, because I just met him the other day, do you look across the table and think, oh, you're cooked. You're a fully done, he's a fully done person.
Yes.
He's a person.
Yes, he is. He is definitely cooked. He is
he's fully done.
He's a man.
He's a man. He's got a personality, jokes, and a life of his own, and a sense of humor, and and I'm like, how must that be for Robin to look across the table at this handsome man and go, oh, wait a minute. Wait.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's very spooky. I mean, I'm so used to it now, and I love him just so much as a friend and as an artist that helps the deep separation that isn't a separation. I mean, the healthy separation that has to come into play.
Right.
But yes, it's very weird. It's a perfectly grown man over there, and that's my son. Ha! Who would think? Don't you feel that way about her?
Yes, I totally do. And has he always been on board with your activism?
Yes, I think he has. I can't ever remember a time when he said, don't go away for a speech, don't do this, don't, And once he saw me stoned, which was a little traumatic, but by the right wing in some kind of picket line, baby killer calling me, whatever,
right.
And that was a little traumatizing. And so for a while after.
Oh, wait a minute! I thought when you said stoned, thought you meant like high, and I was like, oh, wow! Full disclosure here on the radio, Robin.
Oh, well, probably that too, but
stoned. He saw someone throw something at you,
throwing them, yes, at my head. And so that upset him considerably. And it upset me too, what the hell.
Yeah.
But he has always been amazing, and he's now, taking political cudgels up in his own field, about the how musicians get paid so little, and everybody assumes that downloading music for free is so cool.
Right,
because
exactly.
they assume they're all the bonos and and they're not. Most musicians are working folks,
right?
Like actors.
Believe me, my husband is a musician and my daughter is a musician, and it's not something that we don't think about. People just think, oh, if we know you, that means you're getting money for your music, and that's not necessarily true.
That's correct. I mean, and also if everything is free all the time, how do the creators of content feed themselves and their families?
Right. Doesn't it make you proud? I got to tell you, I'm so proud my daughter's a good person, but I'm so ultra secretly proud that she's a feminist and she's a political person at 16. Sometimes, like, I'll be talking to my husband and I'll say, I'm really upset that Sammy's like not cleaning her room, and she'll say, she just wrote a song about sex trafficking. I'll be like,
yeah.
I'll be like, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Eyes on the prize.
She's in a play called Slut about slut shaming, and she just like picketed a non-union store. I'm like, okay, right, you're right, okay, all right.
Oh, God.
Priorities.
Eyes on the prize. And she's the prize. So are you. Is there any news that I need to know that I can to set my DVR for this very second?
I'm on the show Veep on HBO. I'm also on another HBO show called People in New Jersey with Sarah Silverman. And I am co-producing what's going to be next year Gloria Steinem Live at Lincoln Center, which excites me more than anything in the world.
Fantastic.
And I'm in a Tyler Perry movie come out at Christmas, blah, blah, blah. But mostly I think I'm just going to be a regular guest on the Robin Morgan Show.
Oh, I can't think of anything better or more fun. I love you
Bye,
dearly.
honey. Bye-bye, radio audience. Bye, Robin.
She'll be back.
I will be back.
And now it's time for Fighting Words. So I was thinking about the tragic shooting at the Los Angeles airport a few days ago, in which a man shot to death a TSA officer. Not that the Los Angeles airport isn't enough to make anybody distracted, but that's beside the point. I was thinking about the language used in describing this man and this incident, and it's the language that's always trotted out at these occasions. Loner was one word. He was a loner. He had no friends or very few friends. Well, what a way to propagandize our minds toward an incident. Thoreau was a loner. So was St. Juliana of Norwich. So was St. Anthony in the desert. So was Emily Dickinson. I mean, please, does a person, specifically a male person, have to be a gregarious teammate, swillin' and chillin' and beer with his football buds to be acceptable as a human being? Ted Bundy had a lot of friends. So, for that matter, did Hitler. So did Stalin. I could go on, but you get the point. A loner is not a bully. A loner is a bully's target. Bullies run in packs. They get off at being egged on while beating up loners. It's one of those words used like coward is used for terrorists. This was a cowardly act. Well, you can say a lot of things about an act of terrorism, but cowardice is actually not one of them. Then there's the phrase, advance warning signs. Everybody's running around asking his parents, his family, neighbors, did you see any advance warning signs that this was coming? Well, I have an advance warning sign for you. In a society where it's harder to cast a vote than to buy a gun, that's surprise, an advance warning sign. In a civilization where manhood equates with guns, and in order to be a man, you need a gun because, especially if you're a loner, you must not be a real man. That's an advance warning sign. It's an advance warning sign that we live in a civilization which, unless it changes, is doomed. It's an advance warning sign that this country, in the family of nations, if it keeps to these purposes and this obsession, will become a loner. And that's our program for this week. You've been listening to us on CBS Radio WJFK 1580 AM or visiting us at WMClive.com for this and any of our previous episodes. Be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook, Twitter, and at iTunes worldwide, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to our show's podcast. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and for this program Executive Producer Julie Burton, Senior Producer Crystal Williams Chancellor, and our founding sponsor Regina Kulik Scully. I'm Robin Morgan. Thank you for being with us. Join us next week when my guests will be all colleagues and sisters working for a fairer media. Jen Posner of Women in Media and News, Jacqueline Friedman of Women and Media, Rita Henley Jensen of Women's E-News, and Catherine Rowlands of JAWS, Journalism and Women. Meanwhile, look for us on Facebook and Twitter for news of exclusive breaking news segments, surprise upcoming guests, and future shows. Only here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio and WMClive.com. Talk radio with a brain.